my biggest fears about AI is the risk of it degrading our critical thinking skills. More specifically, AI tools often remove humans from key parts of the reasoning and learning loop, and that really scares me. Luckily, perhaps the best person to speak to this concern is the guest of today's video, Hazel Weakly. Some of you may have heard of her before. Hazel is an expert at the intersection of infrastructure, people, and philosophy. She is an internationally sought out keynote speaker and, in my opinion, one of the most talented writers in our industry. Recently, she wrote an article called "Stop Building AI Tools Backwards," and this really struck a chord with me. So, without further ado, let's go meet Hazel. Today we're chatting with Hazel Weakly about a blog post that, as I said before we started recording, it was a breath of fresh air, truly, about how we're using AI wrong. But before we get into that, Hazel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Hazel Weakly. I have thoughts, lots of thoughts. They never stop thinking, and they never stop thinking. I am a fellow of the Nivenly Foundation, and I'm on the CNCF working group of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. And I am really excited to be here today and talk about all the things, literally all the things, and maybe even some of the stuff that we're supposed to talk about too.
Good. So you have this article called "Stop Building AI Tools Backwards." Let's start with, how are people building things backwards? What do you mean by that?
You can think of tools in a lot of different ways, but there's this really, really cool concept in cognitive psychology called accumulative culture. And what it goes over is this idea that when humans build tools, the thing that we do with them, the thing that makes them effective, is that the tool makes us better at doing what we do. And that allows us to make the rest of us in our community better at what they do. And that, in turn, allows us to build better tools. And then this becomes a positive feedback cycle. And this positive feedback cycle sort of ratchets and cranks up the core excellence of, humans, and the richness of our culture, the diversity of our ecosystem, all these things. And so when I think of, is this tool right? Is this tool good? Is this tool, all these fuzzy human concepts, is this tool impactful? What I'm looking for is, does the tool make the human better at what they do? Does the tool help the human and the group of people, or the group of people and systems, like the whole thing? Does it help the whole thing get better, not just that one human? And does the expertise that's being developed on behalf of that collective group then feed back into the tool so that the tool can become improved? Often you see, and most tools don't really meet all these. And in fact, most software tools don't really meet you improve the tool, and then the tool gets better. Which is fine, because we compose so many tools that often it's the combination of tools we use together that gets better, and that's fine.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's the ideal relationship with our tools is that it makes us better at being humans. It makes the things that we're normally good at as humans, ideally, that tool should enhance it and not eliminate the need for it. I'll say one thing I have been fretting over that's been keeping me up at night is you use the word deskilling a lot in your blog post, and I was like, oh yes, this is what I'm seeing so often. Is these AI tools, LLMs, are getting really good at doing what we do to some degree, but it takes away the thinking process. And so something I fear a lot is, over time, people just forgetting how to do things, because if you use it or lose it, it's really as simple as that.
It can be tricky too. So the reason why it can be so tricky is because humans are historically, sort of over time, really bad at understanding what is essential about a skill set and what is ancillary about a skill set before we develop it or before we lose it. So for example, back in the day, quote unquote, wasn't that long ago, but people used to remember phone numbers. We used to be really, really good at remembering phone numbers, and not only that, we were also, ancillary-wise, really good at remembering random digits on a moment's notice, a random small, oh, I should just remember that. We can remember small phrases or small concepts, like tiny little things for a couple days. Just sort of very easily, because the skills that you needed was practiced so regularly by someone saying, oh, hey, here's my phone number. And you go, oh, crap, I don't have anything to write it down on. And then you just remember it. And so we have de-skilled as a society the art, like the skill set of memorizing phone numbers. That one's not that important. Quite honestly, there's like a couple phone numbers you should know in case, some really bad thing happens or you lose your phone and you're in a bad situation. But it's, for the exceptional cases, not I should remember my phone because I have to go, to pay phone somewhere, call collect, and, call someone every day to pick me up or something.
Yeah.
Like a lot of latchkey kids had to memorize a whole bunch of phone numbers for that reason. But that one wasn't really needed. Smartphones replaced that and de-skilled humans in that, and that is fine. The one that may have been more interesting or, more important was the ability to remember small, tiny little things, just sort of long enough to write it down. And the ability to much more adeptly understand this is important to memorize and I can drop this bit of information. Because everything is so easily written down where we don't filter the importance of information nearly as much as we used to. So we just ingest information so much more. Is that important? Is that not important? It's related to the phone number de-skilling, but people don't necessarily link them together.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Can we talk about how you're seeing this in the software engineering world or the SRE world even? How are you seeing AI impact that ability to determine is this important, is there not? What we're talking about is like the deterioration of critical thinking, if we're being honest.
So it is, and that's part of it, what's tricky is it's not always the deterioration of critical thinking. It's the deterioration of part of the thinking process that you're using the most. So the thing that we tend to be using AI for is idea generation, next step sort of generation, and the retrieval mechanism of going, oh, I have this task that I need to do. Let me retrieve in my brain how to accomplish it and then go and execute it. So it turns out that for humans, we don't learn mostly in the learning process by learning the information. We learn by retrieving it. Yes. The retrieval process that is the learning, not actually the downloading it into the brain. And so, like in the Matrix, Neo says,
I was just going to bring that up.
I know Kung Fu. And it's not until, psychologically speaking, it's not until he actually fights that he, quote, learns the Kung Fu. Well, Morpheus is saying, show me. Psychologically, the learning process is actually during the fight, not the download.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, when you're drilling flashcards, people think of it as a test, but I actually think of the idea of tests as this is a validation that you know a thing. That's not really what's happening. That is the act of learning. You are internalizing it because you are taking time to retrieve the meaning of something. What does this word translate to? Whatever you're doing flashcards on. It's that retrieval that actually solidifies it in your brain.
Right. And so you can actually, going into the flashcard example, you can write the flashcards in several different levels of effectiveness. So while I'm sort of describing the levels of effectiveness, think about what people are using AI for. It'll be very interesting. So the first level of effectiveness is the least effective, which is, here's the answer. Here's, what you wanted. Just sort of, here's the thing. If you're memorizing vocabulary, you look it up and you go, yes, here's the thing. You're just downloading the information to your brain. Or if you're just being given it, you're not even downloading it, you're not processing it or retrieving it, it's just there. The next level of effectiveness for the flashcard is you have basically, what is it? It turns out just a blank space, give me the answer, is really hard. Because humans can't ramp up onto that from I don't really know it to, so you end up with a very high failure rate. It's good for when you already know the thing, and you have already understood it, you've already memorized it. Expert retrieval access can be from blank slate. That's great. Most people aren't actually there. So the third level of effectiveness is elision. So elision is where you have maybe, a vocab word. You use the vocab word in a sentence, and then you blank out the one vocab word. So like, I am blank my dog to the park. It could be walking the dog or, whatever. It could be multiple different words, but the elision is supposed to also define and give you part of the definition, so you have to retrieve the actual word.
Mm-hmm.
So it might just give the whole definition of the word, and then is blank, and then you fill that in. And the next level might be adjacent to that. The next level might be adjacent to that. And then the final series of it, and this is where pre-made flashcards fall apart. The most effective way to utilize the flashcards is you create your own elision examples. You create multiple examples and you continue to evolve the flashcard deck. And then you throw out the old cards after you've used them enough. Or you reference them less frequently. And so you have the spaced repetition, but the generation of new elisions is really important. Because you're building new associations. So if you think of what we're doing with AI, what we're doing with AI tends to be, the most common thing that I see is, here's the answer. Just, here it is. You might not have even asked for it. I'm just going to give it to you unprompted.
Yes.
You don't even have to retrieve the how to ask the question from your brain. I'm just going to, like, incident response is the thing that I, go over in the article. A lot of AI things are saying, oh, you have a pager call. The second you load the page, I'm just going to try and give you the answer. Actually, no, I'm going to literally text you the answer while you're putting on your clothing at 2 a.m. I'm going to shortcut the process as soon as possible. And you can't shortcut the process because it breaks how people learn.
Yes.
And then the next level that people do is often, just give me everything. It's like, that's the current typical tool. I'm not going to really give you anything. Here's the blank page. Here's the tool. Figure it out. That's fine. But it means it's a tool for experts. And you see that so often in infrastructure tooling, where the tooling is very capable if you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, read the documentation. And once you read the documentation, you just need to kind of skip up to expert level. Or build that on-ramp yourself. And the on-ramp is super, super hard to build. Really frustrating, very error-prone, and you don't even know how effective you're being. So then, the next level, AI tries to kind of bridge that gap. Often by giving you the whole thing. Or they'll go, oh, well, let's see, you're going to ask something, and then I'm going to just give you the follow-up. The process of generating the follow-up. It's the process of generating the outputs. It's the process that humans learn. So humans learn via process, and we share process. We don't share facts or knowledge. So that actually throws people for a loop. Because
can you say
usually,
that? Yeah, can you say more about that? We share process, not facts. Can you say more?
So, if you think about baking and teaching someone the skill of baking, do you teach them the recipe in terms of the information in the recipe? Or do you teach them the recipe by teaching them the process of executing it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like, when people go, how do I bake a cake? They don't go, 2.5 cups of flour.
Yeah.
No one thinks about that. They think, I'm going to get a bowl now. I'm going to get the dry ingredients. I'm going to prep them.
Yes.
I'm going to, wait, how much cake am I making? And then maybe you look up and reference in the recipe, like the numbers. People don't memorize the numbers. You also don't learn from memorizing the numbers. Maybe you do memorize them. But like, you don't learn from that. Mm-hmm. The learning is how do I sift the flour? How do I, do the whisking thing? I need to actually take the butter and maybe warm it up. Unless I'm doing this type of cake, I don't warm up the butter. And then the whole process. The process is what people learn. And importantly, the process is also what we teach. When we talk about that skill and that matching effect of the human culture, we build the tools in order to more effectively teach people process and give them the ability to build better processes, more effective process. So for example, a one-button build-a-cake machine, really bad for baking, really bad for cooking, really bad for everything. It just will not actually make you a better baker. and you can't customize it in any way. What if I take a spoon or whisk and I upgrade that into an electric whisk? That's an improvement. If I upgrade the electric whisk into a mixing bowl, that's an improvement. If I take the mixing bowl and I allow you to swap out the different utilities in the mixing bowl, maybe customize the speeds, maybe that's a better tool. Because it makes you better at the process of baking.
Yes.
And then you can take the process of baking and you can compact the information a bit better. Mm-hmm. So like you can remember, oh yeah, I turned the mixer to not super high, rather than I have to count in my head a certain speed, a frequency, in order to not mess up, the whipping.
Yeah, exactly. This is a strange analogy, but this is what this reminds me of is I draw, and in a lot of art classes that I've taken, I noticed that when it comes to drawing the human figure, one of the most difficult things to draw, there are people who could, given enough time, do like photographically real renderings and stuff like that, but it would take quite a bit of time. And they struggled with something called gesture drawings, which is like very, very quick drawings that you just kind of capture the movement of the human body. And it's because they had a harder time viewing, the trees from the forest, right? And I think that part of the process is we are able to see, because it's not even just memorizing steps. You're building an understanding of how everything is connected. Why do you want to separate the dry from the wet ingredients? Why do you need to do this before this? Mm-hmm. And so everything in the process is connected. That's why learning process is obviously different than just memorizing facts, because facts aren't related per se. And so understanding how everything is connected is part of the learning process.
Yeah, and you can also see that in I don't know, drawing super well, so my analogy might land a little off. But what I notice a lot is there are some artists who can choose very, very good or, thoughtful and, emotive colors.
Yes.
Their ability to color something is really good. As long as the coloring is realistic and natural. Like they see it, they observe it, they've sort of learned that coloring. But the values might be a bit off. Like if you turn it to black and white, it's going to look weird. So it looks almost right. And then there are some people who are just ridiculously good at values, and they're ridiculously good at sort of the color theory in a sense, and they play with it so much that you see them on, social media all the time of going, I'm going to paint a human, and it's going to look like absolute garbage, and then if I just put a sheet of red over the camera, it's going to pop out. Like I actually designed a modified color value for the whole painting and did it that way. Or I painted the whole human, but I used the color values. Like the values are fine, but I took the color spectrum and I shifted it over so the whole human is, green, purple, blue, and orange or whatever. And then you go, but why does it look right? So they're still following the rules, they're still following the process. They're just using the process for a unique result.
Yeah. So when it comes to using AI for software engineering, for incident response, things like that in our tech world, the problem we're seeing is that these are tools that we've become accustomed to just giving us the answer, right? And that skips that really important step of retrieving the information ourselves. So what is a better way of looking at that? You had this EDGE acronym. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the EDGE acronym is less important than the underlying idea, but it's still very useful. So the underlying theory is retrieval is the retrieval process of learning. It's the idea that humans learn by retrieving information rather than by storing and downloading the information to the brain. And so any process that involves doing this works. And so we typically have a self-learning process, and then we have someone else is working with us and sort of teaching us process. And so for teaching pedagogy, what you're looking for is, how do I essentially get the human to, in a variety of contexts, do this retrieval over and over and over, in different ways, in different manners, in different sort of aspects to make the learning the most effective. And so EDGE, the acronym is explain, demonstrate, guide, enhance. So it's from the perspective of the person teaching the person who needs the skill. And so I explain holistically what you need, what's going to happen, the whole thing. I don't actually do anything, I explain the concept. And I'm going to explain it in this very rough, broad way. Then I'm going to demonstrate it by doing anything. And then importantly, it's your turn to do it. And as you do it, I'm going to guide you through the process. I'm not going to hand you the process, I'm not going to hand you the results, but I'm going to sort of Socratically guide you through the process. And pull that knowledge from you and get you to pull that knowledge from you. And then at the end, once that's happened, importantly, we go through and then we make it better. We build on the next step. And all of these kind of feed into each other. But the idea is, we download the information into your brain, we figure out how to do that, and then you do the thing. And you actually complete the learning cycle. And so with AI tooling, the perspective of the tool needs to be correct for the tool to work appropriately. So normally when we build tools, humans are the autonomous agent, and the tool is not able to give humans dynamic input on how the tool should be used. So the difference between AI and any other tool is that an AI tool gives you input on how to use the tool. The other tools are a blank slate of you use them. They might have some feedback mechanism in the tool, or some friction in the tool that guides you to using it appropriately. Common example would be like for a database. Some queries are fast, some queries are slow. You want to write fast ones and performant ones, and so you're going to learn how to do that eventually. But the database will not teach you how to do that, or it will not look at your query and go, this seems slow. But you have an explain queries thing in the database, and the explain query will break the query down and then allow you to look at that and then modify it. But it did not prompt you and say, hey, you can explain this. You have to just know to do that. But for AI can be a reflective mechanism in the tool and a sort of reflective mechanism in the process to take your solo learning and turn the solo learning into something that mirrors a mentor, mentee, or a teacher-student or disseminator and ingester of information. Like, you can have this two-part kind of process modeled in the software. So if you do that, rather than trying to have the AI be the developer or be the coworker or be the something else like that, think of it from the other perspective. The AI in the tool is essentially giving you the information and the process and the structure to teach you how to use the tool better. You then use the tool better, and in using the tool better, guide the AI to improve the next set of advice.
This is the part that gives me chills, that we have, and actually I hadn't thought about that, that example you gave of, yes, there are feedback mechanisms in tools that we use, like Postgres will yell at me if there's something wrong with your query, right? But it's not going to hold your hand and like teach you. Whereas AI, we have this incredibly powerful tool that can literally act as a mentor. I think thinking of AI as a mentor scares some people, and I understand why, because many people are used to thinking of it as, well, it just does the grunt work. And I think that there is still some amount of grunt work that it's doing as a teacher, because if it asks you, what do you think the next step is? And then you give your answer, and it says, like, would you like me to fetch this information for you to complete that task? Then that's helpful. But it's not doing the job for you. It's still guiding you through that process. And so having it, I love this, like, Socratic style interaction with the AI, because it protects you against deskilling. It encourages you to be better at reasoning and retrieving that information. And
yeah,
I think everyone should be doing this. One question I have is, how do you envision, just on a practical sense, do you envision this as well, let's change the system. When I initially heard this, I was like, oh, we could change the system prompt so it interacts a little bit more like that. Is that something you've thought about, or?
So you can change the system prompt, you can change other types of prompts, but really the AI tool tends to be about as good as it needs to be for these types of tasks. It's about changing how the tool is built to utilize AI and changing how the process reveals like the interaction pattern in order to give it the best effect and give it the best effectiveness. Probably the most important thing from a person implementing AI aspect is getting those interactions right, but then also making sure that the feedback mechanism works. So if humans need to be able to input things into the AI, and the AI needs to learn from that.
Yes.
So one of the hard parts is that humans learn how to use the AI, and then the model changes. And because the model changes, the answers change. And so the tool implementer needs to constantly be tweaking things in order to get the output to approximately be the same. But how do I use the tool for like a couple months and then have the tool be better? If it's not better, then I can't ratchet that up. And so, as a concrete example, one of the most effective illustrations that I've found is when people build the AI tool, they might say, oh, just here's the information, and I didn't ask for it. That'll shortcut the process. But if I say, oh, I'm looking for something, like, where is the SLO page? Or where are the alerts? Or where can I look up this thing? I need to retrieve that from my brain and know that step. And then the AI can take that question, and if you took that question and then just gave some the answer, that doesn't work. I mean, it does work, you have that retrieval process, but it's not as effective as it could be. And the reason for that is because maybe the AI hallucinated the output. It's really hard to have the output be perfectly accurate. And then you need to build this shadow tooling inside the AI to invoke the APIs of the tool to give it accurate, and like, why? Because then the human goes, oh, if I want to know this answer in the future, oh, I have to ask the AI again. And now I have to figure out exactly how to ask the AI so it gives me the right information. And that's not part of the retrieval process anymore. That's just an annoying friction of using the tool. Instead, if the AI said, oh yeah, the tool page for the tool, the thing for the thing, like the alerts. You wanted the alerts, right? Okay, cool. And then it just tells you where in the UI the alerts are. Then you can navigate to the alert page and go, oh, this is great, perfect. And then next time, you might be able to remember that, and you get better using the tool. But then, the AI might even say, and do this more dynamically, where if I say, hey, how do I adjust the time scale for this, chart? Rather than offering to do it, showing you the page, or giving you the steps, it might actually pop up sort of an overlay and point at the button and say, you click this button. And then you click it, and then it shows you the next step, and it says, here's the thing to adjust the slider. And then you click that, and it goes, ta-da! And then it walks you through the steps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually doing it with you. Mm-hmm.
Right. And if it does it with you, now the last thing for the tool implementer. So doing that will be, I think, most ideal. It will be light years ahead of where the rest of the industry is in terms of implementing AI thoughtfully into their tool. It will be great. How do you get that better over time? What if you have experts knowing the tool and, non-experts knowing the tool? There's a skill gradient in tool consumption.
Yes.
So maybe as you're guiding me through, I don't personally need 20 click steps. You can figure out how many click steps to give me. And then you can slowly give me less click steps over time so that I become less dependent on the AI guiding me through the process. And I sort of have to know how to do it and have to learn how to do it over time. And you can on-ramp someone who is a beginner from, oh yeah, so you click here, you go over here, you do this, da-da-da-da. The next time they ask, remove one of those steps. The next time they ask, remove one of those steps and just make it more high level.
Yeah.
And eventually the AI is like, oh yeah, it's over here. Like, you go to this page, here's the chart. And then the next step is adjust the timestamps. Not, here's how to do the whole adjusting timestamp thing. It's adjust the timestamps and go, oh yeah, do that. And so that then teaches the people to get better at the thing. And then that means that the people can teach other people in the company more effectively. And as they're doing that, that's going to have those people ask the AI more complicated questions. And then the AI can get better at that. Mm-hmm. And then you want to continually improve the experience of the people using it and the skill of the AI and assisting the people in doing the thing.
I mean, just like a normal instructor would do with their students, they would start by like, okay, let's make sure we walk through every single step. And then over time, they prompt you less and less, right? They effectively challenge you to remember the steps, to retrieve more of the steps, right? Until all of a sudden, adjusting the timestamp is second nature, and it can just tell you to do the thing, and you do the thing, and it's fine. I love this idea of it changing its responses over time with you. I wonder if that would if you would need to be fine-tuning it over a period of time, or how you would do that for different seniority levels in an organization.
The way you would build like that specific type of thing is typically the AI backend has this concept of like who the user is currently using the tool, and you can store information about that in a database somewhere, and then the AI tool, as part of the prompt or as part of the setup, is given the information that it needs in order to detail the actual, the overview. And so, like, in the back end, what you might have implemented is all the tool steps for showing and reviewing the thing, and then the AI basically says, oh yes, we should show this step and this step and this one and this one. Like, it's not dynamically generating the little revealing pattern, it's telling the interface, oh yes, here's the order. But then if you give it an expert level from, 1 to 5, or 1 to 7, whatever, the AI will then take that and the person's success criteria in fulfilling the task, and then just go, okay, we're going to show steps 1, 5, and 7.
Yes.
Or we're just going to show steps 1 and 10. Or we're just going to, this person's super beginner, we're going to show steps 1 through 15. And then the AI tool can actually take that expert level and sort of update it as it understands the human interaction pattern. And technically that one doesn't need to be AI. You can use Bayesian probability for that one, and you probably should. Sure. So when I mean AI, I mean AI and all the adjacent things, so generative AI and all the other stuff. Please just don't use generative AI for everything. Not only is it stupidly expensive, but it's actually really hard to build semi-deterministic things with it.
Yeah, definitely when it comes to making things a little more deterministic. Like, you can adjust the temperature of things, but it's still, some things are better suited for, like, regular machine learning. You don't always need a neural network for everything. Have you seen many companies, many teams going in this direction? I mean, this is... I hope so, but also your article was one of the first, maybe the first article I've heard people talk about AI in this way. What have you seen?
And so I don't see companies doing this very well. There's a couple exceptions, but they're exceptions and they're smaller. So like some companies have latched onto the idea of if the human gives a natural language question, the tool will then sort of show you the correct query inside the user interface for using the tool. That's really, really great. Most people are saying, oh, natural language question, here's the result page. Just gonna dump it in there with no way to understand how it got there. And you can't fiddle the knobs or, turn the dials or anything. And so that's just not usable. So I think part of the problem is with AI, we're not really focused on like the implementer side. We're not really focused on making the humans better at what they do. The reason AI is typically being implemented is for economic pressure reasons.
Yes.
Not actually, system excellence reasons. And so it's about, can I reduce the headcount of someone? Can I reduce, something, or can I improve the speed or whatever? Yeah. And they're just focused on the outputs, rather than focus on actually making people better doing the thing. Which is funny because making people better doing a thing is the fastest way to get the better outputs. But it does not sell well to leaders who are going, I need to reduce headcount by 20% over the next 2 years, or I'm not going to look well in front of my board. Or the board is saying, you need to have certain types of capabilities. Or you need to... So the pressures that they're implementing AI for are completely disconnected from the people using the tool. So, therefore, it's probably going to be... They don't care a whole lot about that because they're laser focused on what's necessary for the survival of the company. And the survival of the company is currently dependent on how much can you automate and how superficial can you make a task. Because if you can make the task superficial, you can turn people into button clickers. If you can turn them into button clickers, then they become fungible. If they're fungible, then you can reduce them, because the button clicking can then be done by another AI.
Yes, exactly. I think this is what scares me the most is, particularly, granted, this is not about problem solving necessarily, or about AI with, when it comes to engineering or anything like that. But I think it does worry me that everyday people, and I consider myself an everyday person as a non-billionaire, seeing these, generative tools as neat, and they are neat, but I think it's very easy. I think the way they are often marketed feels more like a toy to distract us from the fact that they're meant to replace us. They are meant to, maybe not in every case, right? I think a lot of executives would say that they're not trying to replace us, but we're not investing in AI because we think we'll be spending more money, right? We're investing in it because we think it'll save us money. But to your point, really good, like, quality and security and stability in the products that we build will happen when you have humans who are good at doing the thing that they're good at, right? Which sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but it's it's not as immediately obvious, I think, because you see the AI can write some code. Oh, look, it can build me a website. I don't need a web developer anymore. Boom, I'm done, right? And yeah, it seems like a pill that will fix everything. And for some small tasks, yeah, it will. But there's definitely a deep desire to automate as much of the complex stuff as possible. And I worry quite a bit about that. And I have to check myself because I don't want to come off as too much of a curmudgeon. But I do think that it's a real risk in depriving people of the ability to just be good at the things that humans are good at. So I really hope that people go in this direction more. As we come to an end, are there I was going to say, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to add to this?
So I think I'll just add one small thing on top of that, which is I do totally agree with that, and I do really hope that we're able to build AI tooling and integrations and everything that totally help people be better at what they do. I do think that given the pressures of the economy and just the larger forces in play, as well as the mindsets of the people building the AI systems and the language models and those types of mindsets, what you'll probably have to do is figure out a way to get the same result without appealing solely to make humans better at what they do. You'll need to also figure out a way that the argument is, this makes humans better at what they do, this makes AI better at what it does, and this is necessary to get AI to the point where we want the AI to go. Some people think there's going to be, general intelligence and the singularity and all these other things, and some people think that's absolutely not going to happen. And regardless, you need to get both of them invested in the idea that AI needs to get better with humans getting better, so that humans can help the AI get better, so that it's a positive feedback loop. Otherwise, you're going to have one half of the system, or one half of the group, thinking either, let's get rid of this entirely, or, we should have it get humans better. And you have the other half going, oh yes, we should actually remove humans from the system, so the AI is forced to improve, and so the AI can become, whatever it needs to be. And they become diametrically opposed. And that conflict causes more damage to society than the actual, introduction of different goals. It's not actual conflict. So if you can resolve that conflict or at least align how things are implemented a bit more, then it both sides. If, the different viewpoints and everything all kind of come around to the positive feedback loop thing, then at least we'll be able to make progress that way. We'll still have the force reduction and the other problematic elements there, but at least we might have a bit of hope that way. If that doesn't happen, we're going to need to figure out how to design language models or other ways so that you can make meaningful progress with the tools and the positive feedback loop without needing the buy-in from the larger people in power. And that will be a lot trickier.
Yeah, it will. That is a fantastic thought to land on, giving people something to chew on. This has been really, really wonderful. What a great way to start my Friday. Fridays are always good anyways, and this is an even better way to start it. So, Hazel, thank you so much for chatting with me. I can't wait to read more of your thoughts, of your thunking. And hopefully we'll catch up soon, okay? Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Once again, a big thank you to Hazel Weakly for chatting with me about this incredible subject. If you guys would like to learn more about her, I've got links to all of her socials, how to contact her. She is an incredible person to follow. Definitely go check her out. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.